Aloha, namaste. This is Radha, and I'm here to talk about our recent transit of Mars in Cancer. Mars is going to be in Cancer from October 20th, so he moved in yesterday, until January 20th, where he's going to go back into Gemini for a little stint. And then he's going to come back into Cancer again April 2nd until June 6th. So we have these two periods where he's in Cancer, which is a sign of debilitation, and then in the off time, he's going to retrograde back into Gemini and then forward move through that again. So this is a complicated time for us. It's a complicated time emotionally and also in terms of what we're getting done in the outside world. Mars is debilitated in Cancer because here is where we are not the most disciplined. We're not able to necessarily show up for what Mars does in this world, which is act, right? Mars is our planet of action, and he is courageous, and he shows us how to show up for ourselves, how to strengthen ourselves. And in Aries, his masculine sign, this is really like going out in physical ways and strengthening ourselves, maybe going to the gym or doing some kind of strength training, or practicing a martial art or some kind of sport, competing, learning how to not necessarily just compete against others, but competing against ourselves to better ourselves. This is really the masculine Mars energy. And then in his more feminine sign of Scorpio, we're doing the internal work. We're going deep into our psychological state and really fighting our battles, our demons, our shadows, the things that we put into the corners. We have the courage to bring out and to say, hey, this is what's up for us. When he is traveling in this particular sign, and he wasn't really necessarily doing that well in Gemini either, but this is even more problematic, is we have all these emotions, we feel anger, and we really do feel more anger when he's in a sign where he's not necessarily able to activate, because part of how we get out our emotions of intensity and irritation and anger is by doing physical exercise. When you get up every day and go to the gym, or run or do yoga, or take your swim, whatever your morning routine looks like, you're channeling that extra fiery energy into something. And it's something that if you do every day, or a few times a week, or whatever your routine is, it's going to bring you to a stronger place physically and mentally and emotionally. You're going to be able to cope with life better as a result of those daily disciplines that you do. And then again, with those long-term goals, like if you're trying to, compete in a tournament or a race or something like that, or you have maybe in your work some kind of achievement you're trying to get to, those long-term goals also require short-term steps, right? We have to have a vision, but we have to also show up every day for that vision. We can't just have a lofty vision. We have to do something about it. And so when we are doing those things physically in the world, our Mars energy has somewhere to go. It has something to do. And that's why he's exalted in Capricorn, where we have a goal, even if it's kind of dire, like survival. We're doing something, we're digging that ditch every day, because the ditch means live or die. When he's in Cancer, we don't have as much of a goal for any kind of external thing. It's more like we just want to connect. We want connection, and we want to be loved, and we want to offer love, and we want to feel good. And when we don't feel good, we feel, caught up in our emotions, and maybe even debilitated from action. Like we can't get up and do the thing that we love to do. We can't get up and play the sport we like to play, or go participate in the activity we like to participate in, because we're so riddled with our emotions. And we might be fearful of seeing somebody that we feel anger towards, but we don't want to express it towards them. If you think of a crab, which is the sign of Cancer, we have this sort of sideways scuttle. There's this shell and this hiding. And if you've ever like sat on a beach and watched crabs for some period of time, they dig into the holes, they kind of peep their head up and they look at you, go back down. Okay, not sure it's safe. They might be kind of curious, and then they walk sideways away. It's not the most head-on sign. It's a sign that tends to avoid conflict. even more so than say Libra, where we vacillate and really want to people please, but we don't totally avoid conflict there. We just try to make everything harmonized. With Cancer, it's like the idea of being hurt or hurting someone else is like death. That's the sign is like, that's the worst thing I could possibly do. And as a result, we end up hurting people even more because we're not honest with our feelings. We're not honest with what we're experiencing. And so we tend to avoid communication at all and just make nice. And maybe if I do more things for this person, maybe if I do more favors or completely pretend that nothing happened, we can just make everything better. And sometimes that works for certain people, that works for certain circumstances, that might work. You don't need to necessarily get into conflict over every single thing. If it's somebody who works at the grocery store, or if it's somebody that an elderly neighbor that you help out or something like that, there's not necessarily a need to get into it with everybody that you encounter. But in your intimate relationships, or perhaps with your family members, or somebody that you work with on a daily basis, or your best friend, or all these people that, the relationship really does matter. What happens is our resentments build, our irritation, our resentments, our anger build, and we start to feel like I'm so underappreciated. And this can happen with many different planets in Cancer. We went through this with Venus in Cancer, that feeling of being underappreciated is big. But with Mars, we get angry about it. And we don't necessarily just do more. We start making sort of passive aggressive comments, letting the person know we're hurt without really fully owning our pain. And we can start little petty fights and then feel so hurt we cut ourselves off, because Mars is also where we do cut off contact. We're not actually trying to connect with Mars. That's not the planet that's doing that. Venus does that, the moon does that, but Mars doesn't do that. And so Mars is individuation. I'm strengthening my person, my body, my inner realm, and trauma and drama. I'm strengthening myself. And that can lead to better relationships, because the more you've taken care of your own business, the more you're going to be able to interact with other people with honesty, integrity, and clarity. But when we're not taking care of ourselves, the line between us and them is murky, yet we're still trying to individuate, because that's what Mars is doing. So he's doing it in this kind of murky and mushy way. And it's like, it's challenging. I'll often say, like, Mars and Cancer is like fighting through pillows. We're like, we have something we want to say, but we're going to put up like a bunch of pillows and maybe just throw some feathery pillows at somebody instead of telling them how we really feel, or sharing what's what's true for us. And so this is going to be the big challenge for all of us as we go through this. And of course, there's a retrograde period, which is how he goes back into Gemini. So from December 6th until February 23rd, he's retrograde. And on December 6th to January 20th, he's retrograde in Cancer. So we'll have ourselves running back over what we've done, what has transpired in this alignment. And for each of us, it's really different. It's not the same, because we are all individually different in relationship to Cancer. So whatever your rising sign is, Cancer is a house from that rising sign. If you're a Cancer rising, then it's your first house. It's you, it's your physical being, it's your body, it's your personality, it's your identity in the world. If you're a Capricorn rising, then it's your seventh house, and it has to do with your relationships. So that's part of the dynamic of how it's different for us. And then Mars also rules something different for each of us. So for Aries and Scorpio rising, Mars is actually their ruling planet. So it's themselves in this place in the sky. And for, Taurus and Libra people, it's their seventh lord, it's their relational lord in this place in the sky. And so even for people where it fits in maybe a more promising house, like for some people, it's going to bring about what we call Raja Yoga, where it's a structural planet in a dharmic house, or a dharmic house in a structural planet, or dharmic planet in a structural house. This will bring about better results in the outer world. But the energetic of a depleted Mars will still be there. Our capacity for discipline, our capacity to show up, our capacity to really be with ourselves in truth of our anger and of what we need to strengthen ourselves is going to be less. And for people who already lean towards being a little bit lazy, this can be very problematic. For people who tend to really show up all the time and not have this kind of challenge, this might be like a little bit of a break for them. So also your relationship to Mars is going to matter, what your personal relationship is to this planet. So, and if you have planets in Cancer, of course, that will affect as well. So I do weekly forecasts for my group, my Patreon group, Cosmically Aligned, where I wrote about this for last week's weekly stars, which you get access to if you came now. You get to see what Mars in Cancer really brings up for you. And then I'm also doing a live discussion on Wednesday where we're going to dive a lot deeper into what it means for each of the signs, especially kind of navigating this retrograde back into Gemini. What is the cross from one to the other? Because in Gemini, Mars really has this sort of argumentative vibration where we are expressing, but not what we feel. We're expressing what we think. We're expressing our opinions, and we're very black and white on those opinions. And so we're going to see how that switch happens, and then going back into that place and coming forward again. And we're going to talk about it for each of the 12 signs. And I use members' charts for it so we can see some real live examples where people might have planets in those places, and it might be affecting them in a different way because of that. That's going to be on Wednesday. If you want to link up onto Cosmically Aligned, there's a link in the description. It's patreon.com, Radha Home Astrology. And I'm also going to be teaching about the difficult energy in our charts. So like I said, for some people, this alignment is a Raja Yoga. For other people, this alignment is actually a Dushtana Yoga. So this is bringing up a difficult house, a difficult lord, into another difficult place in their chart. And when we have these difficult energies interact, sometimes it can bring about a lot of blessings for us. And so I'm teaching a class at a big conference. This is the Parashara's Jyotish conference. It happens yearly, and I'm super excited and blessed to be a part of it. I'll be teaching on the 22nd of November. It's a Friday, and I'll be sharing all about how these difficult houses work in our charts, even when they're not forming yogas, but how we can really raise to the higher vibration of the energy that is hard and challenging in our life. So this is sort of something we're reckoning with right now. There's a lot of challenging energy. Mars is not the only planet that is debilitated at the moment. The sun is also debilitated, and that's going to be a shorter transit, but Mars is actually giving his gaze. I can show really quick this wasn't necessarily part of my plan, but I'll show it really quick. You can see Mars is actually giving a one-way gaze to the sun here in Libra, where he's also debilitated. And like I sort of touched on, Libra, we're not necessarily completely avoiding conflict. We're compromising to try to make harmony within it. And we keep making more deals until we can feel like it's fair. And oftentimes we don't ever feel like it's fair, particularly when a planet like the sun, which is supposed to be aligned to what's righteous and true and what our connection to source tells us to do in our leadership and power and authority. And here we're like, well, what are they doing? What do they think over there? What's going to make my boss happy, or what's going to make my, people underneath me happy, as a leader? How am I going to get more votes, or how am I going to curry the favor of those who are following me? And so this can be really particularly challenging because we have both of these masculine planets in debilitation right now, really just longing for connection and peace and harmony, when those are the planets that keep us strong and keep us true. And we learn, like that saying, good fences make good neighbors, or something like that. The more we can kind of be true with ourselves, the more we actually relate well with other people. We don't relate well with other people when we're kind of messy with our energy and we're giving more than we really want to give, and we're not actually taking the time to take care of ourselves. So this is going to be a theme particularly strongly over the next few weeks, as the sun is transiting Libra, but then of course Mars is going to be here for a lot longer. So if you want to join for the live discussion, you can join Cosmically Cosmically Aligned. And if you want to join me for the Parashara's Jyotish conference, I also have a link for that in the at the end of this video. Thanks so much, and wishing you many blessings. Namaste.